Hello, I'm Alex Mansfield, the host of Manny Talks Shooting, and welcome to another episode. This is the shooting podcast where I talk to individuals all across the shooting industry. We'll talk competition, self-defense, concealed carry. If you like this content, check out our YouTube channel, Manny Talks Shooting. And without further ado, let's get to this episode. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to another installment of Manny Talks Shooting, the shooting podcast where I talk on the internet because you allow me to, and the internet says that it's okay for now. This is the Manny Talk Shooting podcast. We talk about the title sponsor of the podcast, Go Fast, Don't Suck. They are the fastest, least suckiest business out there for the shooting sports. They've got banners for your matches. They've got new mesh banners that you want at your matches because I love them, and they are fantastic. Just go buy them. Tell Bill that I sent you and move on with your day. But without further ado, let's get to the real topic today. We're going to talk to Mr. Ryan Barnes of Blue Gun Lube. How you doing, Ryan?
I am excellent today. How are you, Manny?
I am fantastic. It's a wonderful Tuesday at the end of May, so I can't complain.
Oh, yeah, I know it's 75 and sunny where I am, so I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, it's not snowy or horrible, and it's great.
Yes, you get plenty of that where you live, so.
Yeah, but it's going to be a good day. So for people who don't know you, and I mean most people probably don't, but they're going to get to
No.
We're gonna so Ryan, we need to start with who are you and how did you get into shooting?
My name is Ryan Barnes, and I got into USPSA. This is my fourth season shooting. So about March 2019, I did my first match. Um, Background from that, I used to race bicycles for about 6 years, and it consumed my entire life. And I love competition shooting, and there's a ton of overlap between cycling and shooting, which I found pretty cool. But essentially, I moved to Eastern Oregon. There was no bicycle racing anywhere near me, and um, I needed something new competitive wise in my life. And I didn't grow up around guns. I've never really been into guns. But living in Oregon and being in a rural area, I was like, yeah, screw it. Let me start getting into guns. And turns out I really liked shooting. Um, for probably 2 years, I was like, man, I really need to do some competition shooting. And I didn't know where to start. Like there's so many different types, and I had no clue, and I just never really pursued it. Until one day at work, a customer came in who happened to shoot USPSA, and I just happened to have bought a Shadow 2, which is my first ever nice gun. Kind of spirals down the rabbit hole. Now I have, infinities and other things like that. So that escalated very quick. But he told me about USPSA and our local club, which is about 50 miles away. And they hold a match on the third Sunday of every month. And I showed up, I shot it, and instantly just hooked. And I was like, "This is what I want to do. This is the void I've been missing in my life from bicycle racing." And we had unfortunately for the shooting part of it, we had our first kid the following month. So I got to shoot 2 matches, and then I didn't shoot again for about 4 months. And then maybe shot 2 or 3 more matches. And then COVID happened. And my one local club is part of a state park in Washington. And they had to abide by Washington's COVID policies. So they couldn't hold a match until about June of 2020. So I had this big lull in competitive shooting. Um, but in that time, we had purchased a property and I built my own shooting range. So I was still shooting a lot, but I wasn't doing any training at all. I didn't do my first dry fire until November of 2020. And I did it once and I hated it. And I didn't do it again for a couple more months. And then it really hit me that, man, I'm shooting a lot and I'm not getting better at all. I'm still just some C-class guy. I really suck at this. And at the time, this is now January 2021, Travis Tomasi was offering some online training courses, and he's famous for his reloads. So I'm like, cool, I want to learn how to reload like Travis Tomasi. So I took a couple Zoom classes with him, and then I got into dry fire, and I started training a lot, and I kind of went down this like big rabbit hole of perfecting reloads and just dry firing. And I saw my performance start going up uh, quite a bit. So in the past 2 years is when I really started actually shooting. Now I'm an open master and just trying to get to the GM level. And now we have two young kids, so I am limited to the amount of majors I can shoot a year and the amount of local matches I can shoot. But my training is at least more focused at this point.
Wow,
So
that is impressive.
I just shot my first.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear. Oh, uh, I was saying that I just shot my first major of the year this past weekend. So it was nice to get back into that and kind of see where I'm at performance wise. And I squatted with Christian Saylor, which was pretty cool experience in itself.
Yeah, it definitely is. Now that's quite interesting going from C class essentially with then, with that a relatively short time going all the way to master class. Um, but I guess we should go back a little bit. Did you start in production, limited? Like, where did you start when you started competing?
Oh yeah. So I use my Shadow 2, but everyone said, hey, shoot limited because you don't have to worry about reloads. So I shot limited, and then I purchased a Tactical Sport Orange like 2 months later because I don't just dip my feet and I go head first into anything. And I shot limited with that, and I actually got into open in January 2021. I bought a checkmate and a reloading press and started shooting open, and that's all I'm ever probably going to shoot in the sport. I really enjoy it. And it was a slow progression. The hit factor times in open are pretty crazy, but I ended up going from B class to master in 11 months because I really just figured out the training part of it.
Well, that's impressive. So, you went from B class to master in 11 months, which is impressive. So you had that checkmate. Um, what really made you love open when you got into that and started because of course you had to start reloading and learn a lot of other things about shooting because your ammo's got to be
Mm-hmm.
good.
Honestly, I don't really know why thinking back, I don't really know why I chose to go into open. I liked that there was a dot, and I liked that the guns were more expensive. I don't really know, but I remember getting home with the checkmate and shooting it for the first time and going, holy cow, I can't believe a handgun can shoot like this. And once I started it really fine tuning the ammo, it was just amazing how good a gun can feel and shoot. Like the loud noise, how flat it is, the recoil impulse. Um, I loved all of it, and I liked the component of reloading because it's your gun, and it's how good is your load? Is it tuned perfectly for the gun? Do you have to optimize the power factor, the muzzle flip, the recoil impulse, the powder you're using? So I really started enjoying the reloading aspect of shooting as well.
Mm-hmm. Which is interesting because a lot of people are like they reload out of necessity, not because they like it. I know, like for myself, I like loading ammo, but I don't like it enough where I want to do it like as a profession. Like I kind of
Oh yeah.
dread I dread having to go load the components into the press and then crank the handle because then you're like I need like a workout after doing that because your hand is so sore and it's just like
I know. I'll load a couple hundred here and there, but it was one of those crossovers with cycling that I liked because you have to train a lot with cycling, and you had your bicycle which had your equipment which had to be perfect. The tires, the derailleur, the components, everything on the bike had to be absolutely in tuned for you to perform at your best. And that's what I really like about USPSA, especially open because guns could be a little bit more finicky. Is your gun and your ammo have to be tuned perfectly in order for you to be able to perform. So it adds an extra layer of complexity to the sport that I really enjoy.
mm-hmm. Oh, I agree. I do love the very precise, fit guns that need to be perfect. You can't have bad ammo. You can't have a super dirty gun. I mean, although my gun would say otherwise, I guess, but
Yeah, I never cleaned my checkmate because that thing could run on sand and be just fine. But after I got into the 2011 world, I started cleaning a little bit more. And now that I have the Infinity, outside of torture testing stuff, I clean it pretty regularly just because I actually kind of enjoy cleaning the gun.
Mhm. So what made you go from checkmate to infinity? You're kind of like two ends of the spectrum. One is
Oh
like
yeah.
entry level open gun to $10,000 gun.
Well, yeah, 9,000. But so I shot about 30,000 rounds out of my checkmate, and I cracked the slide. And at the time, CZ was out of checkmates to replace it with. So this is in October, and I had planned on moving into the 2011 world anyway. So I found some 2011 I bought for like 2 grand, and I ended up cracking the slide on that after about 1,500 rounds. And I had a friend of mine completely build me a new gun, and then I got tired of waiting for CZ, so I asked them, "Hey, could you guys just send me a Parrot?" And they sent me one, and I sold it instantly, and I just invested that money into this new 2011 that I was building. Um, and then I really like nice things. I appreciate like I'm a machinist. I appreciate machining. I appreciate metal work. And I just kind of fell in love with the aesthetics of Infinities and how they make every part in house. And you could kind of just, you could have a completely unique one-off gun, and I absolutely love that. So and it's kind of easy. You spend $1,000 for put deposit down, then you wait a year, so you have kind of a year to come up with the rest of the money. So I'm like, okay, that's a sound enough argument for me. I'm going to buy an Infinity.
Mm-hmm.
um, so I got it, and then the day after I got this current one, I placed an order for a second one under that same mindset. I'm like, okay, well, screw it. I have another year to come up with the money. So
Right. It's definitely a bonus, right? You don't have to drop it all at once.
yeah, that was nice, and I justified it to the wife, saying that they hold their value very well because people don't want to wait, so they'll pay a premium on the used market for them. And she was like, "Oh, that's not a bad idea." And I'm like, "Yeah." I'm like, "I can shoot the gun, I can sell the gun, recoup a lot of the money and whatnot." But I have no plans on selling it. It's just kind of you got to sell it to the wife somehow.
Right, exactly. As long as she just doesn't, well, long as you don't turn out to be like Eric Steiner who just keeps collecting them and with all of his guns.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, he has four of them now, and yeah, I don't think I don't know. I don't have any plans on purchasing a third one after this, but I say that now. I might. So it's kind of it is a little addicting.
Oh, 100%. But just owning them is like magical. They multiplied. You know that, right? It's just wonderful.
Yeah.
And then you just tell the wife, "Well, it had a baby. I don't know how it did it, but it had a baby."
Yeah, I know. I haven't told her I bought a second one, and that's going to be here in about 2 weeks. So I'll after I get it, I'll tell her like, "Oh, look how shiny it is. It's cool."
Yeah, exactly. And that's the trick. So you talked a little bit about earlier is your plan is to make GM, but do you have any other goals inside shooting that you want to accomplish?
Yeah. So I do. I'm slowly every year when I shoot a major, I'm slowly working my way up in the standings. And I don't think I'm ever going to win a national championship and get on that level, but I would like to win an area match at some point. Um, my first goal this year was to win this sectional the Inland Empire sectional that I just shot in Eastern Washington, and I trained really hard for it. And then Christian Saylor signed up for it, and Michael Leary signed up for it, and I was like, man, it's like I'm not there to beat those guys. And I performed pretty well, but I'm hoping in the next I could get up there and top three or win an area match. Because I do want to make GM, but I don't want to make GM without having the performance to back it. Because then you're just one of those paper GMs, and Eric Steiner was making fun of me for. I told him I wanted to be I was like, I want to make GM, and he's like, dude, you're gonna get beat by M's and be a paper GM, and I'm like, yeah, but I'm still a GM. So kind of figure I really got to once I get that part done, I could extra focus on the match aspect of it. Um, but it's hard. It's a long road, and I don't think I'll make GM for the next year or two, or I don't think I'll win an area match for a couple years. But this isn't something that I plan on quitting. I'm gonna keep pursuing this sport. I want to keep getting better. It's a good mental focus. It's a good skill to have, and the people are great. That's my favorite part. Coming from cycling, where everything is just a big dick measuring contest, everyone in the shooting sport is pretty welcoming, and it's a big change from what I was used to, and I really really just enjoy that.
Yeah, I will agree. the people are fantastic for the most part. I mean, there are the outliers in our community, but for the most part, everyone's there to cheer you on and have a good time while you're shooting.
Oh, absolutely. And that, yeah, and I love that. Cycling was so toxic, and I'm very thankful when I look back that I don't do that anymore. That just was not good for any part of mental health.
Absolutely. So you have your wow, baby infinity number 2 is on its way. Um,
Yeah.
Now, when you picked the specs on your first gun, what were you looking for in that first gun?
I changed the design probably 100 times. I honestly had no clue when I submitted it. I did all these things, and luckily they're very forgiving. Like they say, you have about 100 days to change it, but they are a little bit more forgiving than that if you do need to change stuff. So over the next 3 to 4 months, I slowly kind of fine tuned it. Now that I was shooting an actual 2011 more, the gun that I had built, I started learning a lot more about them, and was able to pick like the grip, um, and kind of just the aesthetic part of it. I went for like a blast pattern, kind of bronze and black blast pattern, which I thought was some digital camo, which I thought was pretty cool. And it's just really picking like what kind of slide racker do you want, grip you want, and safety and angle of thumb rest. And I kind of got all that figured out from that other open gun. So doing it the second time was significantly easier.
hmm So, is the second one going to resemble the first one, or are they going to be completely different?
They're going to be so this one has it did all like digital camo on it, and it's black and bronze. The other one's going to be a honeycomb blast pattern that's all going to be bronze with black accents, and then the honey nip grip to match it, and the honey nip optic mount as well.
Okay, so they're kind of similar, but reverse. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, so yeah, similar but different, and it's also going to be 38 super comp. I figure I should move up to the big boy round. So
Okay, so that's interesting. So you're saying that the open gun you currently have from Infinity is a 9 major gun.
yeah, and you have to kind of like get permission from them to build a 9 millimeter 9 major gun. They don't have it listed on their site, and they want to call you and make sure you have experience with it first before they'll agree to build you one.
Mhm.
So I got the phone. They called me, and I'm like, "Yeah, I know what I'm doing." I'm like, "Here's the powders I use," and they're like, "Okay, cool. You clearly have experience. No problem at all." But my mind, what I took from that is that if you don't have any experience, they probably won't let you buy a 9 major one. It doesn't seem like they like it at all. But I'm
No,
happy to move on to 38 Super Comp. So,
yeah. From what I get as well is it's very difficult. Although I did have a friend who he got a SV, well, an Infinity, but he's got a 9 barrel and he's got a 38 Super Comp barrel. So he's got best of both worlds really. But yeah, and I'm really surprised on the internet. You know, when I talk load data or something, well, about powders in 9 major, and whenever anyone hears 30 and 38 in a 9 major gun, they're like, it's impossible, and I'm like, but I do it.
no, that's what I use. Yeah, I do. I do it too. I need 8.8 grains to make about 172 power factor out of this, and it's very compressed. I mean, I'll load out the precision deltas to 1.18, and it's still really compressed. But the primers look beautiful. The velocities are consistent, and it feels great.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree with all of that sentiment. I mean, my load data is a little bit different, but yes, I the and the nice thing is like if everyone's powder prices are going to go up to like that $45 a pound or even $60 a pound, and Vitavori is going to be at
Uh
45 a
huh.
pound, I'll just stick with it.
Yep, that's what I'm shooting. Yeah, 100%, absolutely. And I used to shoot mainly number seven because at the time it was cheap, and you could load 10 grains in this and have tons of case room. But it's really dirty, and 3 and 3/8 has become a lot easier to find. So I just picked up like 12 pounds of it the other day. So I'm good for there for at least for all the major matches I could dream of shooting for a while.
Yeah, the one thing I learned from going from like loading like minor ammo to major ammo is the powder measure goes down real quick.
And I could literally just watch it sink, and it's fun. Kind of, I'll load like 100 rounds. I'm like, oh, that's about a solid inch and a half lower than it was.
Oh yeah, 100%. And it's just it's depressing because you always have to keep pouring more powder in, more powder in.
I know that one funnel you could load like 1,500 rounds of 9 minor on that one Dylan powder measure funnel, and maybe 500 rounds of 9 major on it.
Yeah. I will say it is nice. The powder measure is nice and it's consistent. So I'm very happy. Like I was happy with I went to the Buckeye Blast a couple weeks ago and it was very consistent when I went to the Chrono station. So
Oh yeah, yeah. This was I always like it when I go there. I'm like, okay, I want to impress these chrono ROs here with my like 1380, 1381, 1382 velocities. And I always have that one that's like 20 feet per second lower. It's like, shucks.
right.
But it's hard to not spill powder with 3 and 3/8, so it's pretty normal.
Yeah, unfortunately. Now my question is, what are you loading on then?
I have the same 750 that I bought when I bought the Checkmate, and I had saved to invest into a Mark 7 auto drive, and Oregon went just full stupid and passed a very strict gun measure law in November that's currently tied up in the courts right now. But I panic bought the Mark 7 money on guns in a month. so so right now I'm just stuck with the 750, and I'm slowly gonna, hopefully in the next year I'll get back into getting a nicer press.
Well, there you go. At least you'll get more stations and maybe you'll be able to make it crank the handle for you.
Yeah, I want to be able to do that. Sometimes it's hard to find the time or the drive to want to reload enough. So all season I find myself just reloading a couple hundred rounds before I go out and shoot, and it's just playing catch up all season. So
Yeah.
one day.
One day we will be like Eric
Yeah.
Steiner who flexes on us all.
Oh, I know. Yeah, his 5 presses, 5 infinities, blah 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 blah. And but yeah, unfortunately, I had to panic buy all that stuff. So I mean, no regrets. I got a bunch of cool new guns and everything, but I don't have a press now. So
Yeah. Well, at least you got the 750 to get you by.
yeah, and it does great. I just did a little rebuild on it. So I mean, with the case feeder and stuff, you could crank out 600 plus an hour. So just spend a couple hours and you have a couple weeks of shooting.
Yeah, exactly. That's for sure. But now I lost my question, but it's okay because I'm gonna ramble until I get to my question that I want. So you were talking about the Inland Empire sectional. Um, you said it was the first major of the year. Um, you said you trained a lot for it. Did you feel prepared, nervous, or what were you feeling during the match?
So I was I wasn't completely prepared. My wife and I did quite a bit of travel in the beginning of this year. So I'd get really big into dry firing, doing it several hours a week and training. And then you go away on a trip and it's like, I slowly have to work my way back into it. And we took 3 large trips this year. And every time I kind of had to like reel back in from that. So I actually wasn't mentally prepared at all. And I decided to sign up to do the mental management class with Steve Anderson, and I'm taking that next week. But I spoke to him on the phone for a little bit, and he gave me some little mental tidbits. And he's like, pretty much said that no one else there. It doesn't matter. They're not gonna, you're gonna shoot you. They're gonna shoot them. Don't think about them. And I always have a problem with thinking of other people. So I just tried to keep a clear head the entire match. And I also, is another first for me was I got my RO certification recently, and I RO'd the staff match on Saturday. It was 100 degrees out, not a cloud in the sky, and zero wind, and I was just completely wiped out. And then I had to show up at 6:30 a.m. the next day, and luckily it was a lot cooler out. But by the end of the day, I wasn't physically tired on both days, but I was mentally exhausted, and I was shooting really good. 8 pretty good stages. I shot the 2 best stages of my life in a row. One of them was an overall match stage win. The other one I missed out by a tenth of a hit factor point on them. And then the next stage, I forgot a mini popper. And then the stage after that was a strong hand, weak hand stage. And I reloaded and shot it freestyle instead of reloading and shooting it strong hand, and got hit with 5 penalties. And my heart sank. And I kind of kicked myself for not really drinking that much caffeine that day. I feel like that maybe would have helped. Um, take those penalties away, and I would have finished in a place that I would have been happy with, given my training and my expectations. So knowing that, I'm happy. It was a big mental slip up, and I have to live with that and move on. And it's not a mistake I'm ever going to make again. So I mean, you do it, and you learn and you move on.
Right. Well, at least you are, you're in a good mental space to be able to take that and be like, hey, I'm learning from this mental lapse that I had due to, brain overload essentially from being mentally exhausted from the day prior. But so that's interesting. But so what made you want to help on the staff match?
So I live in rural Eastern Oregon. There's not many matches near me. This place in Benton City, Washington, is about 50 miles away, and other than that, it's about 2 to 3 hours to get to any other local match. This club it's growing. When I first started shooting there in 2019, maybe it's 30, 40 people, and now for a weekend, for a Sunday match, just a local match, they open up 2 days for it because there's so many people now.
Mm-hmm.
And luckily, there's a lot of volunteers, but I just felt the necessity that this club's been so good to me and so welcoming that I need to get my RO certification, and at the very least help out with their one major match that they do a year. So that was my main reasoning for it. It is very beneficial to like really know the rules a little bit better, because USPSA is all about how much can you game the stage, and you do maybe get a little edge on gaming a stage because you can interpret things in a different way than other people can.
Mm-hmm. Oh, 100%.
But that was really yeah. Oh, go ahead.
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
Oh, uh, yeah, but that was honestly the main reason. I don't really have any intention on staffing any other majors until next year. I'm going to do it there again, but I'll probably end up shooting a staff match so I can get the shooting part out of the way, and then I'll staff the main match. That way, I don't have to worry about uh, my mental preparedness for the actual shooting part of it.
Right, yeah. And I will say it definitely takes a lot of mental fortitude to be able to shoot on staff day and then work the rest of the match because for me, I do find it very it's very interesting depending on what stage you work is if you do really good on that stage on your match and then you have to watch everyone either burn it down past what you did or you've got to live through the dumpster that you put on the stage and you're like, man, this sucks. But
I know the stage that I actually had a stage win on was the stage I RO'd on, so I was able to get the perfect stage plan on how to run it.
mhm.
And it had a swinger at the end, and it was a very slow swinger. And if you didn't time it right, you had to wait for it. And there was one really good way to run that stage where if you did everything correct, you'll get back there at the perfect time to hit that swinger on the full presentation. And I was able to do that, but I was only able to figure that plan out by watching people the day before. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have thought of that. And even in our squad, people were walking it other ways, and I was like, "Hey guys, like let me help everyone out here." I'm like, "This is the way to do it." And Christian was like, "Oh yeah, this way. I'm going to run it that way." So he ran it, and then I ran it a couple shooters after him, and everyone who ran it that way had that same full perfect presentation for the swinger and shot it really well.
Well, yeah, that is pretty fantastic. I mean, I like working major matches. I get a kick out of it, but it definitely takes the right person to want to work a major match.
Yeah, I have an entire a whole new respect for that now. Like absolutely, it is a ton of work, like all day long. I got to sit down maybe twice. Um, and it's hard, especially, and this wasn't even a big major. I mean, people who work nationals, like I can imagine having to do that for 3 days straight.
Yeah, it definitely is taxing and um Yeah, it's taxing, and there's not enough of us out there doing it. So without new people coming up and wanting to do it, there'll be less and less staff at major matches, and that's the hard part.
Yeah, so and that was a big reason why I wanted to do it. It's like I got to help out the local club, and not that they have a problem with staffing there, but um, I figure I'd be more confident. Just I shoot all my local matches there, so I'll just be more confident running the timer for local matches and everything. And it's just a good thing to do, good practice, and I mean it's a good thing for the sport if we all volunteer more. It makes everyone's lives a little bit easier, I think.
Right now, how is it shooting with Christian?
It's cool. I've known Christian for since I actually was pretty new into this sport. Even though I live in a really small rural area, in August of 2019, we managed to get Christian to come here and teach a 1 day class. And first time meeting the guy, really had no idea who he was. And so I met him there, and then I would just talk to him a little bit at matches I'd see over the next couple of years. But I've never squatted with him before. And usually when you see him at a match, he's more serious because it's a big thing. He wants to win it and stuff. But he didn't really care that much about this match. It seemed he was very loose and open, and he was just happy to help and giving insights on everything. Um, he was really fun to talk to, and I was actually really happy that I was able to squad with him, just because we spent a lot of time talking the entire match, and like he was not shy about helping out with like, hey, you should do this for a stage plan or do this for training and everything. And it was cool. It definitely gave me a whole new perspective on him as a person, which was nice.
Well, that's cool. Now, was his presence as a shooter intimidating?
No, not at all, because I know that there's no way on earth I'm gonna ever come close to beating the guy. So, knowing that, it's cool. He's like the superstar of our sport worldwide in America. Him and a couple other names. So it's cool. Just and he shot a CO gun too. So it was also cool just watching what he can do with a carry optics gun and still slaughtering everyone with an open gun.
Right. So did it make you feel better that he didn't shoot an open, or did it make you feel worse because you weren't able
Yep.
to directly compare yourself?
Well, he was signed up to shoot open, and I guess he decided last minute to shoot carry optics. I think he's shooting carry optics nationals, which is coming up, and he wanted the training. So I was really looking forward to him shooting the open gun. So it would be a more apples to apples comparison. I was like, okay, cool. If I could maybe shoot this match within, 15 seconds of Christian, I think I'm doing pretty good for myself right now. Um, but because he shot it in the carry optics gun, it's not as apples to apples as I would have liked. But it was still looking at the time charts and everything. It's still cool to see like movement wise, like where are you moving through these positions and your start times and your splits and everything. And I learned that he shoots his Shadow 2 at the same speed that I shoot my Infinity, so I really need to work on shooting faster.
Yeah, and well, he's got a trigger finger as a gift. I will say that.
Yes, and it's just, I mean, he shot so few Charlies and just going around and taping. I mean, every single target, which they're all two alphas and they were all 1 to 2 inches apart for everything. Like just it's so consistent. And like, you look around, like I'll shoot and I'll have a couple of really good hits and I'll have some that are more spread out and everything. And it varies. And he preaches grip control a lot. And I think it's just, that's gonna be my focus over the next couple of weeks before my next major match in 3 weeks is focusing on just keeping a consistent grip regardless of what type of target you're shooting at.
100%. And don't forget, you got to put all the pro grip or Petzl on your hands every
Oh God.
stage.
Every stage, yeah. I put a little dab on there, and he's sitting there like just pretty much under a shower of the stuff.
Yeah, that is what I get from a lot of the other, super squad guys. It's like they all apply that crap every stage, and I'm like,
Yes, so
eventually,
much.
it's like, where's your hands? Oh, it's somewhere under here.
Yeah, yeah. I can't. I don't feel the need personally for that much. It is great and it does help, but I do just a tiny little dime sized amount before every stage, and that's about it.
Right. You kind of just want to get the moisture off your hands. It seems like at least that's what I feel. Is
That's it. Yeah. Yeah, most I mean the grip I have on my open gun is grippy enough. I mean I don't know how much more grip I need. So it's more for the moisture.
Right. 100. I agree with that. But I guess now I do want to transition over to, why people would know you or at least start to get to know you, and that's with, Blue Gun Lube, right? Your brainchild.
But yeah, yeah. So I'm starting to get known for that. My first claim to fame with shooting was the Hit Factor podcast did their reload competition last year, and I ended up winning it. And for the first time in my life, I'm going to matches, and people are coming up to me saying, "Hey, are you Ryan Barnes?" I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Oh yeah, you won the Hit Factor reload contest." I'm like, "Oh cool, this is what it's like."
Mm-hmm.
Um, but so yeah, so essentially, last year, I over the summertime, I was not happy with anything that I could just purchase at the store, and everything you put on an open gun, it's leaking out, it's spraying on the optic, it's getting on my hands, and I tried all sorts of different things, and nothing really made me happy. Um, I like to tinker stuff. I like to see how things work, and um, I was like, I was like, hey, let me go be Mr. Chemist here, and I mixed some grease and some oil together, and I'm like, oh, cool, this is nice. I like this, and then um, I started researching and just getting into learning about just oils and greases and the properties and what would work well for a gun. And I started really kind of going down this big rabbit hole and creating a set of guidelines that I set out to create, which was kind of a medium weight grease that would work in a wide range of temperatures on a wide range of guns that would stay in place and limit the amount of splatter on your optic. I think the last thing that we need to worry about in a match is having to clean your optic every single stage and wiping off your hands and wiping off your guns. Um, so I kind of started researching and getting into just what do I need to actually make this type of lube. And I started with a couple of first prototypes, and I was like, okay, I think I'm onto something. And I sent one off to Tanfo Timmy, and I was like, hey, I was like, you're a big name in this sport. You seem like a cool guy. I'm like, try this out. Let me know what you think. And he's like, dude, I really like this. My optic stays clean. My gun stays clean. And at the time, the stuff was like black or brown. It was gross looking, but it did its job. And I started just kind of switching up some ingredients of what I was using. And I made this one day, and it had this kind of blue color to it. And I'm like, I did not expect that. Cool. So I was like, I should sell this stuff. I think this is good. And I was like, what should I call it? And I'm not a creative person. So I'm like, Blue Gun Lube. It's blue and it's for guns and it's lube. It's simple. And that's about the extent of my creative mindset there. And I started just extensively testing it all on my Infinity. Just total torture test, going 1,000 rounds plus in the middle of the summer, beating the crap out of the gun, not reapplying it, and fine tuning the formula, kind of starting with the base and fine tuning the additives I'm putting in there to get the grease to be exactly how I wanted it to. So I'm mainly known for just the regular, I call it the OG Blue Lube grease, and it's slightly tacky, it's pretty thin, and on most open guns you can run it down to around 40 degrees. Some open guns you can run it below freezing. Some open guns need to be above 50 for it to be used. There is no upper limit on the temperature. I kind of do my own little like drop point testing at home where I put uh, a piece of metal at 45 degrees and heat it up and measure the temperature until the lube starts to drip down the surface. And this stuff is pretty stable upwards of 400 degrees. And if you're just out there shooting your gun, maybe the outside gets to about 150 degrees. Um, so it's well within the limits of the grease, but it's tacky and it stays in place. And a really cool thing, and you just got some, and once you start shooting it, you don't like to clean your gun, so you'll really appreciate this. It stays on every single surface that you put it on. Like it doesn't move at all. And it doesn't matter how many rounds you shoot. And because of that, you can just wipe it right off the gun. You don't need any solvents, no nothing outside of what you're going to clean your barrel with. you need nothing more than microfiber to clean your gun completely back to the bare finish. And that was something I didn't really realize when I made it until after I started really testing it. It's like, oh, cool, man, I could clean my gun all the time and just cut back drastically on the cleaning part. But then winter came and I started selling it a little bit more. I sent out a bunch of samples around and people were like, oh, I really like this. Some people were like, oh, this doesn't work in the cold. So my hopes and dreams of having like a one and done grease for every temperature, kind of like the one grease to rule them all, were shot at that point. So I set out on making like a cold weather grease and started experimenting with some different additives. And I got the absolute complete opposite of a cold weather grease on the first time. But when I was shooting the gun, I was like, man, something feels really weird. And I realized that I had created a grease that drastically reduces slide velocity, dramatically reduces the slide velocity. And kind of the equivalent of running a super heavy spring in your gun in terms of softness, but without the slide slamming home. And I was like, did I just accidentally make like a recoil controlling grease? So I spent the next couple of weeks just like kind of honing in the formula and just testing on every single gun that I own, recording slow motion video. I sent it to people and got feedback from them. And that's how slide control was born. And the downside to that is it does have a narrow temperature range. You can't really use it below 50 because it won't work. And you can't use it above 80 because the effect of it is diminished. So I'm currently trying to work on a hot weather version of it. But that stuff really took off. Like there's people who absolutely they love it as a grease in itself, but I grew to really like it because open guns can be very violent and it takes all of the violence out of your open gun. So I found that it definitely improved on hits and just how well the gun was tracking. And rounding it out, I have just what I call my light tack oil. It's just kind of a medium weight, lightly tacky oil that more of a general purpose for ARs, carry optics guns, plastic guns, kind of whatever you want it for. I made this stuff because I bought a P322 and that gun needs a lot of lube to run well. And it leaked out all over the gun. Every time I pick up the gun, it was like, man, I got to wipe this whole thing off. And I was like, I should make like an oil that doesn't leave the gun, but it's still an oil. Because that gun you would not want to run grease on. And I kind of formulated this and you could put it on the gun and come back to the gun 2 weeks later and it's all still inside the gun. So those are the three main things that I have. Two of the things that aren't as popular. I do have a dedicated cold weather grease that you can run on a 2011 down below freezing on most guns and it'll work just fine. And I do have an ultra super thin, very slippery grease I called Super Slick, which I kind of developed as like a break-in grease. I just had a 2011 open, not a 2011, I'm a limited optics 2011 built. And it was so tight that nothing on earth would make it cycle. So I put some of that stuff on there and I could go and shoot all day with it. So that's kind of the sole purpose of that gun. Or I'm sorry, of that lube. But for the most part, what everything has in common that I make is it's tacky. So it's not going to splatter on your optic. It's not going to leave its surface. And it all contains some level of a friction modifier, which helps keep a nice barrier between metal surfaces. So you can expect not having to clean your gun as much. You can go very long periods of time, regardless of your gun, without cleaning it. And this stuff just lasts really well. I'm a big fan of it. I'm still trying to figure out a label for it, and I'm still trying to figure out what type of bottle I want to use. What I sell it in now, these work really well. I like the fine tip applicator because a lot of stuff that comes in greases has like a thick tip on it, and you put so much on the gun, and you have to end up having to wipe off half of the product. So I want to try to make it so you can get in all those little nitty gritties, especially on this gun. I have thumb shield there. So it's really hard to get grease in that area. So I know people appreciate that, and I'm still looking for kind of a better solution. But so far, it's been really popular. I'm very happy with it. Even if this never succeeded, I am just completely content that I found something that I absolutely trust 100% on anything that I own.
Hmm. Well, it's very cool that you essentially you saw a problem for yourself and then found a solution that then helped yourself and many other shooters with who had the same type of problems.
Yeah, I think anyone that uses an optic, especially a 2011, you got to have those guns really wet. Everyone experiences getting a ton of oil all over your optic. Pretty much shoot the first magazine, and especially if it's thinner oil, it splatters and it distorts the image everywhere. With this stuff, it greatly reduces it. You'll still get something on the optic, but it's very small amounts. And I shot the entire match without having to touch my optic once. And I'll go several training sessions without having to touch the optic. And even though there is stuff that has accumulated on it, it's not big distorting globs of oil.
Right. You probably more have fouling and dirt from your gun going off on your optic more than grease or lube splatter.
Yeah, on the my carry optics guns, yeah, that's kind of the main concern is just getting a bunch of that stuff. The optic on the Infinity sits so far back that it stays pretty clean. Um, from that at least, it's more just the splatter because you have the island right in front of it, so it's kind of really hard to keep anything off it on that gun, which is kind of set the chain of events in motion to start doing this kind of.
Hmm. Right. So you said your background is machining. Did did that is that what kind of helped you start the process of playing with the lube and the what with the ever ingredients you were working with? Did that kind of give you a starting point, or was this totally like I'm going to do some research on the internet and hope it sticks?
So actually, partially yes. In terms of there's certain things that don't really exist in gun lubes, and I think that they're a fantastic thing for them. And it's being tacky. Virtually everything you buy, nothing has any type of tactifier in it, and all that means is that it's just not going to stick as well to the surface, and it has a tendency to just fling off. In the machining world, we use a lot of whey oil on the ways on your lathe or your mill to keep them gliding smoothly, and that whey oil has tactifiers in it. And that was when I first got into machining. That was my first experience with tactifiers. So I always thought that that was pretty neat thing about the that type of grease. So when I started doing this, I'm like, tactifiers. Yeah, that's it. That's the solution. Let's make this tacky. And I ran into a lot of pushback. People going, "Oh, a tacky grease is going to attract more dirt." And from my testing, it doesn't attract anything in addition to any other grease or oil. It'll all
Hmm.
kind of attract dirt and dust in the same manner. So I figured, well, why not just have it stay in place better? Because at least you're going to have that protection. Um, and I'm really big into cars. I love cars, and the life of your car depends heavily on your type of oil selection and your transmission fluid and your differential fluid. And a very common thing in differential fluids and transmission fluids and even engine oil is friction modifiers.
Hmm.
For those not familiar with friction modifiers, it just kind of creates a polar layer between the metal and the other piece of metal, and it just kind of keeps them separated. And pretty much everything in a car contains some level of that. So I started getting researching into friction modifiers, and I was like, I don't think this is a common thing used in gun oils either. And it would make perfect sense because we have two metal surfaces that are just sliding against each other, and that's what we want to protect. Um, so I started experimenting with different types of friction modifiers, and I've settled on one particular one that is in pretty much everything that I make. And it has really increased how slippery everything feels, and has reduced the amount of drag in the OG grease that had initially. Because my whole mindset was I want to make a grease that feels like an oil and acts like an oil, and I kind of more or less have achieved it. And a lot of it is thanks to the addition of friction modifiers, but the added benefit is you get the added protection on your gun as well.
Gotcha. Now, have you thought about patenting it, or are you still in that process?
Yeah, I do want to eventually take the next step with this. I like it. It's fun. It's really good for like my ADD. For the five different products that I have, I can't tell you how many failed ones I have. I'll just get the idea of like maybe I should do this. This would be cool, and I'll make some versions. I'll make some batches of it. I'll try it, and most of it just ends up in the garbage because it's really bad. Right now in the summertime, I don't have as much time to dedicate to this as I want to, so I am just kind of keeping everything as it is right now. And this winter, when I have absolutely nothing to do, I'm going to take it to the next level.
Excellent. That's good to hear. I will say I do like that you offer, at least in the OG and the slide control, you offer the syringes because those are fantastic for like bench tops. You just leave it on your bench, you don't have to worry about it.
Yes.
And then you can put the little tube in like your range bag if you needed to apply more lube at the range.
Yeah, so that's actually the exact reason why I have both of those. I started off with just the little bottles, and I was like, man, these little bottles travel great. They're small. You could put them in your toolbox and your range bag, not know they're there. Um, but I was like, yeah, they're not the kind of a little pain in the butt to use for lubing your gun at home. And I was like, ooh, what about a fine tip syringe? And I was like, oh yeah, that is definitely the way. You can have way better control in the amount you're using, and it's a little too big to bring to the range. So kind of having both is pretty nice.
Hmm. Yeah, it is. I will definitely say that. And um, yeah, I enjoyed putting it on. At least it's definitely made the gun feel different, right? Like we talked about
Yes.
that personally. It's like it feels different than the other lubricant I was using prior to, but not in a bad way.
Yeah, you'll get with the grease generally compared to what most people use, which is an oil or something. And I found that the most common grease people used was like the Lucas Extreme Duty grease, which from my testing, I absolutely hate as a gun lube. But a lot of people just use oil, and a lot of people actually don't care what oil they put on their gun. From people I talk to, like, yeah, I just use like Hops 9 or like CLP or like whatever I could find, or they'll just pour some Dirty Mobile One on there, and I'm like, yeah, all of that works, but it's not ideal.
Hmm.
Um, so I set out to create like the ideal solution that gives you the protection that your gun needs, but also just keeps your gun clean. You put it on your gun, rack it a few times, wipe it off, go to shoot it, and you don't really have to worry about it that much after. It stays exactly where it needs to be. So,
Hmm.
but yeah, the feel is a little bit different. And that is the first thing people do notice is the slide maybe does feel a little bit slower. It does add a tiny bit of drag, which will lead to a slightly softer feel. The slide control is that feel, but on steroids.
Hmm. Yep. I have not put that on there yet because I'm gonna try out the original OG. And I'm shooting a match this weekend, so we'll try it out at the match, and then we'll see how it goes, and if we need slide control, we'll go to slide control. But we'll see. I don't know
Yeah,
yet.
I recommend if it's getting above 80, you're not really going to notice the effect. If it's still cool enough, I think it's a pretty cool feel. I actually kind of miss the feel, which is why I'm trying to formulate a hot weather version of it. And right now, I'm not having the best of luck, just because no matter what, everything gets so thin in the heat, and it kind of makes it lose its really stringy effect that it has. So I'm kind of slowly just getting myself back into using the OG grease. But for you who doesn't clean their gun, you're going to really appreciate how easy it will be when you do give it a cleaning, and I think you'll appreciate how much is on the gun still. Like it literally just doesn't go anywhere. You don't need to reapply it. You don't need to do anything. It's there for the life of whatever you're doing.
Hmm. And that'll be nice too. And when I say I don't like to clean my gun, is I will wipe it down, but I'm not one of those who I'm gonna undo this bolt and take it all apart. I'm like, it's just more lube. That's what you do. You wipe off the dirt and you
Hey,
put
keep
more lube
yeah.
on there.
Yeah, that's I have I have a MMP 1522 with a binary trigger in it, and it gets dirty and disgusting. And with the binary trigger, I mean, you could just go down the rabbit hole and just start shooting 1,000 rounds before you know it of dirty 22. And I run the light tack oil on that gun, and I took that gun apart after probably 10,000 rounds, and I was like, "Ooh, I could just wipe this bolt. Normally have to soak the thing in solvent for a day to get it all done." But that's essentially all I did to that gun. Was occasionally I throw another drop or so in there and just keep on going and going and going. Um, the Infinity is my like I do have a backup 2011, but the Infinity is my training and my main match gun. So, and just because I spent so much dang money on it, I found some love in cleaning it very frequently.
Right. Well, anything to get you away to be able to, play with things that you enjoy, right? It's
Yeah, and plus with the development and testing of everything, I mean, there's times where I'm taking my gun apart and cleaning it 5, 6 times a day because I'm cleaning it, trying out a different formula of something, shooting it, testing it, taking it apart, cleaning it. So it's like the gun has just stayed completely spotless this whole time.
hmm Oh, 100%. And that's got to be fun for you because you get to tinker, that's that machinist in you who's like, "Oh, what if I try this?" Or if there's definitely those things to appeal to your ADD, right?
Yeah, it is, and I and something else I just learned that appeals to my ADD is I'm building a limited optics gun, and I had a local builder, Mark Bradley, just fit the barrel, the slide, and the frame together. But I'm going to do the rest of the gun, and I'm going to DLC code it. So I'm fitting and finishing the rest of the gun, and I didn't realize how much fun it is to sit there and just polish parts and just like it's so freaking cool. And I'm just sitting there. I'm like hours later. I'm like, wow, that was a really quick 3 to 4 hours. But like, look how shiny this barrel is now.
hmm
So the greasing is kind of the same thing. I mean, I'll just go in the shop and I'll start tinkering and trying to come up with new stuff. Like I just a couple weeks ago, I was like, I want to make like a really thick oil because some people don't like grease. So like let me make a really thick oil. And I was like, ooh, this is nice. And then I shot it and I'm like, nope, this sucks. It just made a huge mess on my gun. And I was like, well, it was the process itself was fun.
hmm Right. The tinkering, the developing, and move. Yeah, that I can see being. It's just kind of like loading ammo, right? Like you're trying to find the perfect load for your gun, right? So you're messing with spring weights, you're messing with powder, and you know, overall length, and yeah, it's just the rabbit hole goes
Yeah.
on and on and on.
Yeah, it's the testing part. I mean, I've put guns in freezers, put guns in front of heaters, sprayed guns with pressure washers, blowed compressed air with sand on guns. Just like everything I could think of like the most extreme real world conditions. And I'll take a gun out of the freezer and I have to put gloves on to hold it. I'm like, okay, does this work? And it's well below freezing. Or I'll leave it in front of a heater to where the gun's uncomfortable to hold because it's so hot. And I'm like, how well does this stick in this heat? Um, yeah, I sat there just directly putting pressure washer on some guns and like just how well does it hold up to having just 3,000 psi of water sprayed on it and stuff. And um, it all performs really well, but there's some tinkering that needs to be done to make it get to that point, especially with the extremes of temperatures, especially in the cold, because a lot of people don't run grease in the wintertime because it just doesn't work. And I'm like, well, I don't want to sacrifice protection in the winter. So I tried to make something that has a very wide temperature range.
Right. Well, and that's true. And people, they either forget or they don't want to have to clean their gun between seasons, and then they have to put new lubricant onto the gun, and all around products are good for the most part. Sometimes you can't get
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to hearing what you say about it. I'm still trying to get the word out. I don't have a ton of followers on my main Instagram page because I'm kind of a nobody in the shooting world. So slowly trying to get the word out more. But the more people that try it, the more feedback I get, which helps me in further development. And the overwhelming majority of the feedback itself has been very, very positive. And it's just if anyone ever wants to message me and just talk about just gun loops, I love the topic. I like talking about it. I like hearing what people use right now and their opinions on it, and their opinions on my stuff after they use it as well.
hmm Yeah, and I totally agree. It's nice to get the information out there to all the shooters and be like, some probably don't even know about this stuff. So then they hear this podcast, they're gonna be like, I'd at least go give the guy an effort and go look him up, right? It's one of those things of
Yeah.
you find him on Instagram, and your prices aren't like, for honestly people, if you bitch about the prices, I mean, you're a little ridiculous. Like, like especially if you're gonna try it, there's no bitch to try it at that point.
Yeah. So I set my prices initially based on my production methods and bottling methods. And that's the other half of the battle is how do I streamline making it and how do I streamline bottling it? And I've sped up that process significantly. A lot of the money that I've made from it, I've just invested back into how much faster can I make and bottle this stuff. So I do plan on reducing the prices of it a little bit. People don't understand. They might go, okay, $9 for this little bottle here. This little bottle here will last you an entire season if you clean your gun regularly, and it will last you way longer than that if you don't clean your gun regularly. You need so little of it, and it lasts for so long.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's what people don't understand is when they go from a very thin lube that just runs out the gun, you're always gonna have to put it on there. But
Always.
with something like this, you won't have to because it's gonna protect and stay on your firearm.
Yeah. So yeah. So the more the word gets out, the better. There's definitely a lot of people, and I learned this. I guess there's been plenty of people who've like tried their hand at gun lube stuff in the past, and I guess there's that stuff Fire Clean, which was just cooking oil, and it was polymerizing on people's guns, and they couldn't remove it. And I was like, oh man, I had no idea that the shooting world has been like burned by this kind of stuff before. So I know there are people who are a little weary of trying some guy who's just mixing stuff in his shop, but I can assure you, I'm not mixing motor oil and grease together. There is a lot more that goes into it than that,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not cooking oil,
Right? Or it's not made from frogs, right? Like that frog leap
yeah.
stuff.
Oh yeah, and yeah, I think someone mentioned that stuff is just like coconut oil, and if you look up like the information that they have on their website about it, man, it sounds just like coconut oil. But it polymerizes on your gun. So once that happens, if you're not familiar, if you've ever used a cast iron pan or carbon steel or stainless pan for cooking, you have to season it, and that seasoning is just taking cooking oil, heating up to a certain temperature to where it changes on a molecular level and creates a polymer, which is semi-permanently bonded to the metal, and that's what gives you that non-stick coating. Frog's lube thing is that once you get the gun hot, that happens to your gun, it's a cool idea, but you're going to have a bitch of a time trying to get that off. Go scrub your cast iron pan and get it back to bare metal. It's a lot of work to do that.
That is a sin, sir. You never clean the cast iron pan.
Oh no, never. I mean, I scrape it. I scrape it with a wooden spoon, get it real hot, rinse some water over it, and I mean it's ready to rock and roll. But since I really learned how to use metal pans, I haven't used a non-stick pan in years because of the PTFE, the whatever the poly whatever the technical term for that compound is that's in Teflon, which is poison to our bodies. And my lubes also don't contain any PTFE as well. As shooters, we have to contend with lead poisoning. Why should we be ingesting forever chemicals in our body as well? Because if you handle something within your fingers, it's going to get in your body. There's nothing you can do about it. Mm-hmm. So there is none of that in there, and there's no lead in there either. So,
all right. Well, that's cool. I'm glad that you're going out for the benefit of the shooter too. Using compounds and chemicals that are not harmful to us per se.
Yeah, I mean, I've been handling it directly on my skin now for almost a year, and I'm still my hands aren't blue, so I mean I'm still good, but I couldn't imagine how much PTFE I would have ingested if I had put that into my stuff.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, you don't want to.
Yeah, because I think there's I think like the Tetra lube that you could find at gun stores. It's like kind of a white yellow container. They put that in all of their stuff, and it's really common in bicycle chain lubes and stuff. And I mean, it's a great for nonstick coating, and it's a great lubricant. But it's just once you get it in your body, it stays there forever. It's definitely not right when we already have to deal with lead. So.
Mm-hmm. Now you got me with that last comment. Have you put this on a bicycle chain yet?
Oh, so I haven't, but I did have somebody. So I've had a couple like random uses. Somebody who's a police officer bought some, and he got his like his department into using it and stuff, and he uses the grease on his handcuffs because you have to lube them, and he's like, man, I can put this on here, but I don't have to worry about it getting out and getting all over people. And I'm like, oh, cool use. So and then I did have someone inquire about using the oil on their chain, and I said, he never got back to me. I said I don't recommend it. I don't think it would make a good chain lube, just because it's, I don't know. I just don't think it has the right properties for a chain lube. But he never said anything bad about it, so I'm assuming he's using it.
Right. Well,
And
yeah.
I do end up using some of it on my press as well. The super slick I made works really well to lube parts of my Dylan, so I use it on there.
Well, there you go. That's a good use for it too. But yeah, so I mean, we're near the end of our time together, but I do have a couple questions. I don't know, do you have sponsors or partners or people you like to shout out and support, as a shooter?
No, I'm a completely sponsor free, I guess sponsored by wife shooter. So no company has come up to me with anything as of yet. So and that's fine. So no, I don't have anything to really to shout out for. I have some friends that personal friends that do things. My friend John Headland, Fab Customs making 2011s, and my friend Daniel Hughes, Recoil Built. He does really nice um, foam cases for guns. Not the fancy stuff that Range Panda does, but this is more of just like straight down to business, really super durable stuff.
Hmm.
But no sponsors for me though.
Yeah, I will say though, John Headland is a good dude. He and I have had plenty of conversations about when I was getting into the 2011 game.
Oh
So
yeah.
yeah, he's a good dude, and he always shouts out on the Hit Factor podcast. If anyone,
Yeah, he does. He gave me one, so I was like, maybe I should take this opportunity to throw him one back.
exactly, and John's a good dude. I remember challenging him to. We were in a group chat, and he was dry firing. I'm like, okay, I was a smartass. I said he had this inversion table, the thing you strap yourself to. I'm
Oh
like,
yeah.
flip yourself upside down and do this drill, and he did, and it was like, I wish I got to see if I can find the video again, but it was, I was like, that's impressive.
Oh, that's a good idea. I mean, have you seen my on my Instagram? I have a video of me shooting a Texas Star on some bicycle rollers.
I think so. Maybe. Did you get the idea from what Laney Barnes or something?
Yeah, so I watch her do stuff, and I'm like, man, I like trick shot stuff. So I went and I tried that one day, and that thing it racked up over like a 250,000 views on Instagram and stuff, which was pretty cool. But yeah, now that you mentioned that little inverter thing, I'm like, I should get one of those and try doing some shooting with that as well.
Yeah, it was just funny because it was in his way. I'm like, well, hook yourself up to it and at least be useful. But yeah.
Oh, it's funny.
But yeah, so Ryan, if they really wanted to get a hold of you or buy your product, where can they get a hold of you or find it?
Bluegunlube.com is just a direct link to the store. Blue underscore gun underscore lube is my Instagram for that, or Ryan underscore Barnes underscore shooting is my personal Instagram, which has a link to both the Blue Gun Lube Instagram and the store on there as well. But bluegunlube.com would be the source for finding it. And I have the descriptions on there. And then just if you are curious or have any additional questions or want a recommendation for what you can use for your gun, you can always DM me and I'm happy to answer any questions about it.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's awesome. Yeah, guys, go check him out at bluegunlube.com or Instagram. Find him, chit chat with him. But Ryan, dude, I greatly appreciate you coming on and talking to me about shooting and the products, because I think more people needed to know about it.
Yeah, thank you. This was great. It's my first podcast, so I'm like I've always wanted to be on one, so I'm just super happy to have gotten the opportunity. So I really appreciate it.
Well, you're very welcome, and it's just like two dudes talking over the internet, so it's not super stressful, and it makes it pretty
No, it's
easy.
cool. Oh yeah. If it was a little later, I'd be drinking some beer, but it's still pretty early here. So
Right, true that. But Ryan, like I said again, thank you for coming on, and we'll have to do this again at some time.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. But to the listeners, until next time, get out and do the things, and I will see you on the next one.